Ciao ragazzi! This is Talk Calcio TV on YouTube. Buonasera a tutti! In this episode we preview this Sunday's big clash, that is AC Milan, the Rossoneri, taking on Inter Milan, the Nerazzurri, the Milan Derby, or as some others know it, the Derby della Madonnina. The Derby della Madonnina is of course the Milan Derby, contested between the two clubs of the city, AC Milan and Internazionale Milan. It gets its name after the statue of the Lady Madonna on top of Milan's famous Gothic Duomo, Madonnina of course meaning Little Madonna. You could say this is a derby which is kind of a friendly one. It's not extreme like you see in between say Lazio and Roma or Celtic and Rangers. It's known as a friendly derby. In recent years it has been mocked as the Derby della Made in China, as now both clubs are owned by Chinese consortiums, having previously been owned by local supporters Silvio Berlusconi and Massimo Moratti respectively. It's also a game that nowadays doesn't really have the big stars like it used to. You don't get Paolo Maldini walking out alongside Javier Zanetti, or even Franco Baresi against Giuseppe Bergomi in the 80s. Like Italian football, you could say this is a derby that's got left behind, but this Sunday when they meet, which Milan team will have the bragging rights? Brief history on both of the clubs. We start with AC Milan, the Rossoneri. Their full name is Associazione Calcio Milan, originally founded in 1899 by ex-English patriots Alfred Edwards and Herbert Kilpin as the Milan Cricket and Football Club. Now there's two theories as to their famous Rossoneri red and black shirts to this day. Some say that the red is from Nottingham Forest, the team I support in England, and the black being off Notts County. Of course they play in black and white stripes. That was how Juventus got their strip, but that's another story. Kilpin said on his choice of colours, "We are a team of devils. We have red as fire and black to stroke fear into our opponents." AC Milan is a history that evokes such greatness both players-wise and success-wise. Joint in 4th position as the most titled club in the world alongside Argentina's Boca Juniors, they have won the Serie A Scudetto 18 times, the European Cup 7 times, only Real Madrid have won more with 12, and the Coppa Italia 5 times. Early success came in the late 50s and 60s, with the team winning their first 2 ever European Cup wins. However, the next 2 decades saw a decline and brought very little to cheer for fans of the Rossoneri. In 1980, they were then relegated to Serie B after being found guilty of a match-fixing scandal. Things, however, would change for the better for them in February 1986, when the club was purchased by local fan and media tycoon Silvio Berlusconi. Inter Milan, or Internazionale as they are known, they were founded in 1908. Now, believe it or not, they were actually formed from AC Milan in protest. At the time, AC Milan refused to sign any foreign players as they only wanted Italian players so the national team could be as strong as it possibly could. Some players took exception to this, so them, along with some Swiss players, they walked away. They went to Ristorante Alloggio, which is still in Milan to this day, and they decided to form their new club in protest. They come up with the name of Internazionale. Now, you always see signs at the San Siro at Inter matches with a banner saying "Ci sono fratelli del mondo." That translates, "We are the brothers in the world," which is how Internazionale got its name. Their colours, of course, are black and blue stripes, the Nerazzurri as they are known, which represents the sky and the night. Occasionally you'll also see a snake featured sometimes, which was the symbol of the House of Sforza that ruled Milan in the 18 and 1900s. Inter Milan, like AC Milan, have won the Serie A Scudetto 18 times, the Coppa Italian 7 times, and the European Cup 3 times. Their first spell of success came in the 1960s when they inherited ex-Barcelona manager Heleno Herrera and midfield general Luis Suarez. No, it's not the Luis Suarez that you're thinking of. They of course were known as the Grand Inter team, or the Grande Inter team. They won the Scudetto 3 times on the trot. They also retained the European Cup in 1964-65 as well as the Continental Cup at the same time. Alberto Herrera, so say, became the founder of the famous Catenaccio style of defence. For those who don't know, of course I've criticised the style recently. Catenaccio is of course when you score one and you cause a defensive lockdown, which you basically defend for the rest of the game. Despite the success of Heleno Herrera, the Nerazzurri, however, would only win the Scudetto just twice between the years 1970 and 2005. There was a shift in power in the city of Milan to the red and black side. When Silvio Berlusconi purchased the club in 1986, he said he wanted to take the Rossoneri to the very top of the footballing powers, and that he did. First of all by employing Arrigo Sacchi, a 41-year-old who had previously managed Parma, but of course the famous Dutch trio signings of Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten and Frank Rijkaard helped push the Rossoneri to great success both in Serie A and in Europe. Of course they won the European Cup in 1989, then retained it in 1990. They then of course also retained the Continental Cup, as it were. After Sacchi left, however, in 1991, he was succeeded by of course famous coach Fabio Capello. Capello of course won the Scudetto back. They went a whole season unbeaten, if you remember. They then won the European Cup again in 1994, beating Barcelona 4-0 in Athens. They would also win the European Cup again in the years 2003 and 2007 under former player Carlo Ancelotti. During this period of success for Milan, Inter owner, of course, Massimo Moratti, the son of previous owner Angelo Moratti, he also bankrolled major signings for the Nerazzurri, the likes of course, Lothar Matthäus, Jürgen Klinsmann, Andreas Bremer, Ronaldo, Javier Zanetti, but success was completely starved for them. That was, however, after the 2006 Calcio match fixing scandal. Now, 2006, of course, was a great year for Italy. We won our 4th World Cup, but there were problems back home in Serie A at the time. Now, Juventus had finished the table that season in 1st place. AC Milan was 2nd, but when the Calcio match fixing scandal had broken, Juventus were relegated to Serie B. AC Milan were docked points, and by default, Inter Milan won their first ever Scudetto since 1989. After this scandal, you could say Italian football nosedived. It took a turn for the worst. Inter, however, would win 5 straight Scudetto between Roberto Mancini and Jose Mourinho respectively. In 2010, they won their 18th Scudetto. They went ahead of AC Milan by 1. They also won the Coppa Italia and the Champions League, of course, beaten Bayern Munich in Madrid 2-0 in the final, 2 goals from Diego Milito. And in that final, that Inter Milan team had, just like its name, had no Italian players whatsoever. It was Internazionale in more ways than one. Jose Mourinho, though, would leave the Nerazzurri and go on to Real Madrid. They have not won the title since. The following year, AC Milan would win the title back to equal at 18-all. Of course, Massimo Allegri, now coach of Juventus, walked into the Rossoneri. Inspired by striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic, they won the Scudetto in 2011. Since then, it has been 18 Scudettos between Inter and AC Milan, but it's fair to say neither side has had any success at all in Serie A, at home or abroad, ever since. This really has become the derby that modern football has forgotten. So, what is the difference and the divide between AC Milan and the Nerazzurri Inter Milan in terms of support? Well, the truth is the length of a football pitch. Bizarrely in Milan, you can have both Interisti and Milanisti supporters in the same street, the same family, the same house. This just doesn't exist in Rome between Lazio and Roma, that's for certain. Alessandro Nesta, of course, the Lazio captain, transferred to AC Milan in 2002, and he was gobsmacked when he found himself living in an apartment that also had Inter Milan players, and the two got on between each other. He said this would just never happen in Rome. The only divide, though, of course, I would say, as we know, is more to do with the previous owners. Now, we've not done this, but we're going to in June. We're off to Milan. We are going to do the San Siro tour, don't worry. If you go in the home AC Milan dressing room, you will see each player has his own leather chair with his name on. Silvio Berlusconi was more the flamboyant, superstar, Hollywood type of man. He said football has to be, you have to feel like a superstar. If you go in the Inter Milan changing room, of course, there is just one bench. Every player sat at the same level. They have just one peg to hang their shirts on. Massimo Moratti is the sort that he believes in hard work, football, to achieve. You all achieve it together at equals. So that's one sort of divide. But apart from that, it is more or less a 50-50 split, you could say, in the city of Milan. So we look at the head-to-head record between the two teams. Inter Milan, of course, they lead the way with 78 wins. Milan have won 76. There have been 66 draws between them. Earlier this season, of course, Inter Milan beat the Rossoneri 3-2 in the league, a hat-trick from Mauro Icardi. However, the Rossoneri would have their revenge in the Coppa Italia, knocking their cross-city rivals out 1-0. In terms of goals in this fixture, Andrei Shevchenko leads the way with 14 goals. Second is, of course, Giuseppe Meazza. Of course, the San Siro bears his name. The biggest win ever in this fixture Also, you have to go back to 2001 when AC Milan thumped Inter Milan 6-0. Of course, Inter at the time were managed by 1982 Italian World Cup legend Marco Tardelli. He was gone soon after. Controversial moments, the only one I can think of between the two of what we call a friendly derby. Of course, in 2005, the Champions League quarter-final tie between the two sides was abandoned. Now, with Milan winning 3-0 on aggregate, a flare was thrown from the Inter end which hit Brazilian goalkeeper of AC Milan Dida on the shoulder. He was of course then stretchered off. The game was abandoned. AC Milan went through that year of course to lose the final to Liverpool though in Istanbul on penalties. So on to this Sunday evening's big match of course, the Derby della Madonnina. Now this weekend you'll see if Mauro Icardi's playing, him leading out the Nerazzurri, Leonardo Bonucci leading out the Rossoneri. As good as they are and as big names as they are, it's not going to be the same as the 80s and 90s where you'd have Baresi one side, Bergami the other, or even in the noughties when you have Maldini on one side, Javier Zanetti on the other, and just teams full of superstars. You know, like we say, Italian football hasn't got those big names anymore. We probably will never see them days ever again. But when the game starts and you see the choreography from both ends, the black and blue of Inter, the Nerazzurri, and the Rossoneri of AC Milan, there's nothing better in terms of a spectacle. On the pitch, our predictions, we're going to go for a home win for AC Milan. They have got momentum on their side right now. They've got into the Coppa Italia final. We were there last week when we saw them tactically outsmart Roma, and Eusebio Di Francesco did Rino Gattuso. The players are showing the same fire, desire and character like he did during his day. He's finally got some consistency from them. Inter Milan for me just have not been the same since November. You know, we wonder if it's the usual Spalletti's thing where his sides start well and then they blow up midway through or towards the end. I don't know, but we are going to go for a win for the Rossoneri on that one, a win for AC. Thanks ever so much for watching this episode of Talk Calcio TV, where we gave you the in-depth history between Inter Milan and AC Milan in the Derby della Madonnina. So tell us what you think of this predictions this weekend. Like, comment below. Will it be the Nerazzurri? Will it be the Rossoneri who will triumph? Don't forget to subscribe, Talk Calcio TV on YouTube, and we will speak to you tomorrow when we give our results prediction ahead of this weekend's games. Arrivederci. Ciao.